Welcome to OUTdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. OUTdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go. Hey folks, welcome to OUTdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America. I'm excited to introduce our guest, Julianna Sonnik, an account executive at Callis. Julianna has been with the agency for a couple of months now, and she has a really great story to share. Growing up here in our small town in Missouri, graduating from the University of Central Missouri, working in the retail jewelry business for a few years, and now pursuing her MBA. In this episode, we'll dive into Julianna's background. She'll talk about some of her experiences, and she'll share her perspective on marketing trends today, what it's like to work in a small full-service marketing and advertising agency, and she'll pass along some helpful tips for small business marketing. Finally, we'll explore her transition into a leadership role at Callis, where she's using her skills and insights to help clients in rural America. Welcome to OUTdrive, Julianna.
Hi, Cliff. Happy to be here.
I'm excited that you're here. I want to introduce you to our audience as the newest account executive at Callis. You have such a great background for what we do. I mean, you have really the perfect education. You're working on your MBA right now, which I think is awesome. You have experience doing what we do in the real world, having worked in the jewelry business for a few years. So I think you're very well prepared for a great marketing and advertising career at Callis, and we're excited that you're here. I probably stole a little bit of your story, but why don't we start by having you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have lived in Sedalia basically my whole life since I was about 3 years old. Last spring, I graduated from UCM with a degree in marketing and I did a minor in advertising. For about the past almost 4 years, I've worked here in Sedalia for Bixel Jewelry, fine jewelry store, as their digital marketing manager. And right about after I graduated with the marketing degree, I went straight into pursuing an MBA in general business, also at UCM. And I'm about halfway through that program right now. And then about 2 months ago, I started my role here as an account executive at Callis.
So I think you told me earlier that you moved to Missouri when you were 3 years old from California, and you've lived in the same small community in Missouri your entire life. What was life like for you as a kid?
Yeah. Like you mentioned, I was born in Sacramento, California, then moved here with my family around three. I'm the oldest sibling. I have a younger sister and brother. Growing up here in Sedalia was great. Small town childhood was a great experience. So both of my parents are from Moldova, which is a small country next to Ukraine. So I grew up surrounded by a lot of Eastern European culture. So that impacted me a lot growing up. I read a lot as I was younger, spent a lot of time doing creative things that really expanded my imagination. And I think that had a great impact on me once I stepped into school.
So you've kind of pursued a marketing career. What do you think attracted you to this field?
Yeah, so I, for a long time, was interested in photography and in social media. In about sophomore year of high school, I started a small photography business on the side. I did a lot of portraits, senior photos, engagement photos, that sort of thing. And then I joined DECA, which is a marketing club, while in high school. And that is where my understanding of marketing and my interest in marketing really started to grow. I competed in integrated marketing campaigns at the district, state, and national level. And so what I would do was create these integrated campaigns for local small businesses here in Sedalia. And I do social media for them. I do photography. I develop marketing plans. And that really gave me the understanding of what marketing was and made me interested in pursuing it in college.
So you're going for your MBA right now. I think you said you're close to halfway through it. Why has education been so important to you?
My mom always prioritized education my whole life. It was a very big deal for her and for me as well. She always championed getting an education, especially for women, and that was always a priority for me. I think getting my MBA was just a natural next step after I got my bachelor's degree, and I did it just to gain more knowledge in the business and marketing world and be able to kind of step into higher level leadership roles and open up the door for more opportunities.
Well, I think it's always a great idea to go as far with your education as you can. I think a lot of times high school and college teach you how to learn. But I think as with the advanced degrees, you're really getting into learning about things that really are going to impact your career, impact the job that you do, and become really highly valuable. So I think it's great that you're pursuing your MBA, and I know it will greatly benefit you as you grow professionally. So, are you ready for my first curveball question?
Sure.
What do you think makes a good marketer?
I think a good marketer can communicate well. I think a good marketer is a good communicator. They understand the value that a business or a product has, and they understand how to convey that value to the right audience.
I think that's a great answer. You do have to be able to communicate verbally, but part of communication is listening, right? And I think a good marketer is a good listener who hears, who processes, who analyzes, and then takes that information that they've heard and use it in some way. So great answer. That's my first curveball question. I'll have a couple more for you.
Okay.
But you did come to Callis with some great experience. Some of that experience you gained working for my brother in the retail jewelry business as his digital marketer and social media person. Tell us about that experience. Tell us about some of the things that you were able to do and some of the things you learned through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked for Mark at Bixel Jewelry here in Sedalia as digital marketing manager for almost 4 years, and it was an amazing experience. I learned so much through that job. I was able to do a large variety of marketing activities. So I worked on the Shopify e-commerce website where we had all of our online jewelry sales. I worked on email marketing, the billboard ads, social media content. I supported a lot of the sales, the custom design. I was also able to incorporate my photography background into my work at Pixels. I transferred into product photography, learned how to photograph diamonds and fine jewelry, and that contributed a lot to the advertising content I was producing for Pixels. And it was just a very fun and creative role. It's such a fascinating industry to learn about and to be a part of. And the most special part of it was how every piece of jewelry was so sentimental to customers. I was able to see several of my friends and family members get engaged, and several people in the community be able to design custom pieces that meant a lot to them. And so there was a very special relationship building aspect to it as well that I enjoyed a lot.
I think that's another part of being a good marketer is building relationships with so many different kinds of people, whether it's people you work with, clients, media people, vendors, having those relationships that you can use to help clients grow their business and build their brands. I have to wonder, is it hard to photograph a diamond?
Yes, it's very tricky. There was a learning curve involved. There's so many facets of a diamond. There's so many details in a jewelry piece. So I had to invest in a macro lens so I could really zoom into those jewelry shots. And it was actually a lot of fun. I had to learn, what angles work best to highlight the stones, highlight the diamonds, how to best show it on a model or on just a backdrop. And it was a really, really fun experience.
And was most of that then just kind of trial and error to see what worked the best?
Yeah, a lot of it was, especially in the beginning, being new to the jewelry industry. And a lot of it was trial and error. And then over time, I kind of learned what worked best for creating content.
So you mentioned learning about this new industry. And of course, each industry is unique. I mean, business is business, right? You're still going to deal with the financial side of business and the people and the operations and facilities, and of course, the promotion and all that. But every industry has its nuances, and every business has its nuances as well. And over the years, I've always thought that one of the things I enjoyed the most about what I did and had the opportunity to do was to learn about new businesses. And so now you learned about the jewelry business, and now you're starting to learn about some other types of industries, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, one of the things I think that people struggle with sometimes when you're running a small business or you're doing the marketing for a small business is that you have all these things that you can do to promote that business, right? But you probably don't have the budget to do them all. Do you have any tips for a small business person to maximize their marketing spend?
I have two major tips. The first one would be to really begin to understand where your customers are and where they're consuming their information or their online media. Understand where they are. That way, you know best where to reach them. And that can be done through research, of course. And I know if you're a small business, marketing can be overwhelming. You might not know where to start. There's so many apps. A couple years ago, TikTok was the biggest thing. And I think a lot of businesses felt the pressure to kind of jump on. Everyone was seeing success there. Just because it works for another business doesn't always mean it'll work for you. So I think really understanding where your customers are and what content works best in reaching them is really important. And that'll help you maximize your marketing spend. And the second thing would be, I think, as a small business, especially if you're in a rural market, there's a huge power in storytelling. I think being able to share your story with your audience, whether that's online, through your social media posts, through the ads you're creating, can really help you to connect with your audience. When your audience can begin to understand your story, your background, where you're coming from, what value you bring to them, that really helps boost their awareness. They feel like they can trust you. They become more loyal to the brand. And I think having that loyalty really helps with getting that return on your marketing.
Well, and I think you just mentioned a couple of really important words that resonate with most people today, and that's loyalty and trust. And I think those come from being authentic. That's a thread through a lot of the podcasts I've been doing over the last couple of years is authenticity, being yourself, who you are, tell your story honestly, openly, and then people are attracted to that. And of course, in every business, you're not going to appeal to every possible customer, but you want to find those that share your values, that like what you do, and want to do business with you. And so telling the story is a way to make that happen. So you've been on board at Callis for a few months now. In your own words, describe the role of an account executive.
I would say an account executive is the in between person or the liaison between the agency and the client. You are really a communicator. You ensure that the client's needs are understood. You keep projects on track. You make sure that deadlines are being met. It's detail oriented. It's focused a lot on relationship building. You're looking out for the client and you're ensuring that you're meeting their needs in every way that you can.
And what do you think makes a good AE?
Definitely the communication aspect, like I mentioned, if you can listen, like you also said, listening, communicating, being transparent with the client. It's a very detail oriented business. So being able to keep track of details while also juggling several roles or tasks or projects is also essential.
So I'm guessing that when you were going through the interview process with us, thought you were very well prepared for this role. You agree with that?
Yes, I would say so.
Why do you think that you were very well prepared?
I had two significant experiences that I think really prepared me for this role. One being my work at Bixel that I mentioned. A lot of it had to do with, of course, the marketing side and the relationship building side. And then while I was at UCM, I was on the collegiate sales team. And that experience taught me a lot about sales, about relationship building, and about communication. We would compete collegiate sales competitions all over the country. And it was a huge challenge and honestly a really scary experience that taught me a lot. You would, walk into a room, maybe it was an auditorium or it was a live streamed panel with judges, and you would have a role play scenario and you'd have 10 minutes to sell to the client. And the clients were oftentimes real employees of companies like Gartner who would sponsor us. And Gartner is a research and consulting firm. And so you would sell their product to their employee, and you never knew what scenario you'd have or what personality the employee was assigned to present. And so it was a really good lesson in effective communication, how to understand client needs in order to meet them, and how to pivot if something unexpected came up. So that really, I think, prepared me well for an account executive role.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It was fun and it was terrifying all at the same time.
Well, I think sometimes those go together.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. Do you agree that marketing means different things to different people?
I would say yes.
Okay. I thought you would answer that way. So, what's your perspective on marketing? What's it all about?
Marketing, what it really comes down to is value. Kind of like what I mentioned previously, is communicating value to your customers, having them understand what you bring to the table. And secondly, I think marketing really, I know we talk a lot about that here at the agency about the importance of integrated marketing. I think that's probably one of the most important aspects to it is in the marketing work you're doing, making sure that you have this consistent, cohesive campaign across the board, no matter, whatever blend of traditional or digital media you're using, that it's all consistent, it's reaching the right people at the right time, and it's conveying that value.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I think you were so well prepared for a role as an account executive because you were actually doing that integrating. And you mentioned it earlier, you're doing social media, doing digital marketing, you were doing photography, you were doing billboards, video. And when all those things work together, they're way more powerful than on their own. So I think that's one of the reasons you were so well prepared because you get that. You understand that integration. And I think I told you this story when you and I were going through the orientation process that we even added integrated marketing onto our name, and we own the name Callis Integrated Marketing. We don't use it much anymore, although every now and then some mail floats in with that name on it. But we took that name because we knew how powerful integrated marketing was, is going to be, and we wanted it to be front and center for us as we promote our agency. What we came to find out, however, as we talked about, is that a lot of people don't understand what integrated marketing is. And so I kind of see that as our job is to educate the audience about integration. So I think you're very well prepared from that perspective as well. So you came to work for an advertising agency, small market where you grew up. What surprises have come along your way? What are some things that you were surprised to find out, surprised to learn, surprised to know?
Yeah. I think the biggest aspect that surprised me was just how many hats you wear in an agency for such a variety of businesses. Even though it may be a small market or rural America, there I have worked just in my 2 months here with on such a variety of projects that no day looks the same. And I might work on something I've worked on before would be like social media for hospital clinics, while at the same time working on a video podcast plan for a client or creating a resource directory for local resources for people in need. And then at the same time, working on a product launch plan for a gun accessories company. So it's all just so different. And that I think was a little surprising. And it's fun, it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, it is fun. And I think it's one of the things that kept me engaged for so many years is the opportunity to do so many different things. And you go from one thing to another thing. And every time you do a project, hopefully you learn something. And then maybe you can apply that learning to the next thing that comes along or the next thing. You're just continuing to build your knowledge base, your experience base, your confidence level with the work that you're doing. But the variety kind of keeps it fun. You learn new businesses, you get to do different new things. And of course, technology drives a lot of change in our business. And so with technology, you're getting to learn new things all along. So I think it's one of the things that attracts people to a smaller agency like ours is that opportunity to do a variety of different things over the course of a day versus just doing the same thing for the same client every day.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned some of the things that you've been working on. Any challenges in those fun things?
I think in a way, every project with its newness, in a way, stretched me and brought about its own challenges. There wasn't a particular situation that really stood out to me. And I think a big reason why it was such a smooth transition was the team that I've been able to work with here. I think you all made it very clear from the beginning any questions I have or anything I need support or ideas on, you all were available for that. And so I think if I did come across little things here and there, I had a team to bounce ideas off of and that I could communicate with. So it's been very smooth so far.
Well, and you've done a nice job of asking questions. I know you were working on a podcast promotional plan for a client and you came to me and said, "Hey, tell me about this. Let's talk about this." And you had some great questions and hopefully you learned some from that you could apply to that situation. We do spend, I think, a good amount of time developing a new associate. We have a fairly formal training plan and a very specific one for account executives. And then there's some more indirect and informal training that people get. And of course, maybe the best is the on the job, working on projects and working maybe with another account person to see how they do things or how they handle people or, how they manage projects. But from your perspective, talk a little bit about the training program that you've been working under.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working under the account executive training program and I've been working with you. We've been meeting up and working through several key marketing topics and just topics that I need to know coming into an agency environment. And I've been able to just kind of pick your brain, ask you questions about your own experience starting this company. And you have so many valuable stories and tips and so many insights you've gathered over the years. So it's been really great to be able to learn from you. And then the team as a whole, has offered their assistance in any questions I have. And there's weekly mentorship meetings. And it's been great to be supported in that way and feel confident that, I'm training, I'm growing. And then in April, I will be flying out to Denver to attend an account executive training with the AMI, the Agency Management Institute. So that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, my first AMI meeting totally blew my mind. I had been in the advertising business about 15 years when I went to my first AMI meeting. And, I thought after 15 years, I knew everything in the world about running an agency, right? And I go to this meeting and it totally blows my mind with all the ad agency inside scoop info that I learned and brought back and started to implement over a long period of time that really positively changed our business. Changed my life too, honestly. So I'm excited for you to go to AE boot camp. It's kind of like going into the military, but it's not. It'll be fun. And, after being on the job for a few weeks, you're going to have a good understanding of what they're talking about. And I think you're going to be able to relate it to many of the things that you've been working on. So I think that's exciting that you're going to be doing that. And of course, in our agency, we use a customized training program. I mean, we don't assume that anybody knows anything. We basically assume they don't know anything at all. And then we start building around that. So, we always do a skills assessment, we do a technology assessment. You took the questionnaire about the account executive training program. So we knew what you already knew, we knew what you didn't know, and we're able to kind of customize our training then to your specific needs so that you can move down the learning curve as fast as possible, as fast as you're comfortable with. and we can have you working with our clients as fast as possible, which is what we both want to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, as a professional marketer, what kind of trends are you seeing in the marketplace right now?
Like all marketers right now, AI is a massive trend. It's a big buzzword. It's being incorporated a lot into different marketing tactics. I'm seeing it being talked a lot about. And I would say the second trend I'm seeing is the trend of community engagement, kind of from the angle of direct to consumer brands or retail brands. I think there's just been a lot of saturation online in marketing. And so a lot of brands are turning more to their customers and they are interacting with them online, creating in person events specifically to engage with the community instead of maybe a broader campaign or just only working with influencers. And I've seen that community engagement really help brands stand out and kind of build that trust with their audience.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, there's a brand, a travel and leisure brand that I follow that has different properties around the world. And I just noticed the other day that somebody had posted a question that really dictated an answer. And that answer didn't come, and it didn't come, and it didn't come. And I'm like, these people are missing the boat. Here's your opportunity to engage with a potential customer, and you're not taking advantage of it. So that community engagement is really important, but you got to walk the talk. I mean, if you're going to say you're going to do it, you need to do it and take advantage of the opportunity that it presents you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think consumers can really tell when a brand is being authentic. And those small things like responding to a comment online actually make a big difference to potential customers.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your kind words about going through the training program with me and getting to hear some of my stories. Others are not so flattering when they talk about that because sometimes I get tired of my stories, but sometimes you got to keep tap, 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 tapping with a message to make sure that the people hear that. And I think that's what advertising is really all about. Just because you put an ad out there, and many people don't realize this, just because you post something on Facebook doesn't mean people are seeing it. And even if they see it the first time, they may not see it. It may take several times. And so I think that frequency is really important. And you mentioned earlier, and I want to go back to this because I think it's a really important point about knowing where your customers are and then meeting them where they are with your marketing. And I think that's really important because, as you mentioned earlier, there's so many different ways to communicate with people today. You have to find out where your customers are, and that's where you need to be. And you can make that a very simple message. It's not a simple process. It requires research. You need to understand who your customer are, and then you need to know how they're consuming their media. So I was glad that you brought up those points, and I wanted to go back and just kind of reiterate that. On a personal level, are you using AI in some form or fashion?
Yeah, I am actually. I think there's a lot of useful use cases with AI. I have used it in personally, I've used it in school. I think it's really useful for idea generation or if you need to create an outline and in like a tool aspect.
Well, there's a lot of tools out there. People are going to be trying them all. Some are going to work, some aren't. Some are legit, some aren't. But it's going to be interesting to see how all of this unfolds because it truly is the biggest trend that's happening in marketing today and really every industry, but particularly in marketing.
Yeah.
So, on a personal level as well, one of the things that we try to do with our podcast, as you know, is to educate people about what rural America is all about, the kind of lifestyle we lead, things we enjoy, the kind of work we do. What's it like for you living in a small town in Missouri?
Yeah. So I would say with Sedalia or just the Midwest, rural America in general, I have had such a positive experience in the way that local people behave towards each other. I think they're just down to earth. They are very friendly. They'll wave you through at a stop sign. I think one of the biggest examples of this would be my favorite local coffee shop here in downtown Sedalia, Ozark Coffee. If you sit in that shop and you pay attention, the baristas know almost everyone by name that walks in through the door and they'll greet you by your name. And I think that really encapsulates what it's like growing up in small town America. People are intentional. People have a slower, maybe simpler way of living. They're friendly, they're hardworking, and there's also a lot of great resources. I think there's a misconception that maybe there's not quite as many resources in terms of an education, but I actually have had the opposite experience growing up in the Sedalia school district. And once I got to high school, there were a lot of local donors that supported a scholarship fund for students. And even at UCM, smaller class sizes and much more affordable tuition. One of my MBA classes only had 5 people in it. So it was very, very one-on-one. There was actually a lot more resources to go around, and I think that really enriched my experience here as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think people are surprised to hear that we have as much as we do here. We're not running around the dirt roads in our bare feet, although that's fun to do too. We do have technology, we do have access to broadband, we do have resources, we have education, we've got some great jobs and opportunities. That's kind of my take on rural America. And of course, you talked about some other things too, but let's go back to that. When I say the words rural America, what does that mean to you? What kind of thoughts and images come to mind?
I really think of community and connection, kind of going off of what I said. I think it's a lot about the relationships that you build with people. And like you mentioned earlier, authenticity is huge. I think if you are trying to market to rural America, understanding the audience and having an authentic message, a trustworthy message is really important, and understanding how to connect and communicate.
Those are great, great perspective. So as we wrap up today, first of all, I want to thank you for being on OUTdrive. I want to encourage people that are listening to connect with you on LinkedIn. I think if they don't know you, once they get to know you, they're going to love you and give you an opportunity to share anything else that you'd like that might interest or maybe even inspire our listeners.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun. I guess my piece of advice would be geared towards maybe individuals who are interested in pursuing marketing. Maybe they're about to go to college, or maybe they've already been working in a completely different industry, but they're just considering marketing. I would say that the work experience of actually getting the hands-on real life marketing work was really what was so valuable to me. I learned so much more from that than I even did, in college, just being able to put all of that into use. So I would say if you're interested in marketing, get that internship, get maybe a paid job, or ask some local small businesses if you can work on some small projects for them. A lot of local businesses that would be thrilled, to bring someone on to do some projects for them. I think the real life experience is really where you learn to understand what marketing is.
That's great advice. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for being with us on OUTdrive.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cliff.
Folks, thanks for listening to OUTdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with Julianna Sonnik, an account executive at Callis. If you like what you heard, go out and give us a rating and review, make it a good one, and come back again next week, and I'll take you down the roads of rural America where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on OUTdrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to ecallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, OutThink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.